Welcome. My name is Brent Evans. I'm an economics professor here at Georgia College, and in the past, I've been putting on seminars for new hires or current faculty and staff members at Georgia College, just to try to help you navigate the benefit system here that we have at Georgia College, which, by the way, is a really good system. And my primary area of expertise is in terms of retirement planning. So I'm sure you're somewhat aware of TRS and ORP and those options, but we're going to get into those. But we're also going to talk about the alternative options that you have that you can do in addition to those in these videos. A few notes that I just want to state off the bat here. I'm not certified. The things that I know a lot about tend to be things that are pertinent to me. That's why I sought out this information to begin with. And you should definitely not base all of your decisions on what you learn from this video. Basically, don't sue me because I'm just trying to provide information. I'm not necessarily trying to tell you what decision you should personally make, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. I'm making this video for anybody who's watching it. It could be right now in 2020. I'm posting this for new hires, but for anybody else that happens to stumble upon this, I hope it helps you make decisions, and feel free to send me an email if you have any questions. My name is Brent Evans, and you can email me at brent.evans@gcsu.edu. This can get pretty complicated, or it can be simple depending on how deep you want to dive. And my plan is to give you about an hour of content here, and that's probably enough to get most of you through a lot of the harder decisions that you have to make. So the first thing you have to decide if you're a new hire is which of these two mandatory plans you're going to choose: the teacher's retirement system or the optional retirement plan. The teacher's retirement system is a pension plan where you contribute throughout your career, and depending on how many years you work and how much you've earned during your best 2 years, that will determine how much you earn after retirement. The ORP, the optional retirement plan, is like a 401k. Technically, it's a 401a where you can contribute funds and they are invested based on your choosing. And the plan offers a very good match. Both of these plans are really good. Both of these plans are way better than what your friends are getting in the private sector, but certainly they are very different. And what's scary about making the choice is you only have 60 days after being hired to decide which of these you're going to choose. And there's absolutely no way to make a change to your selection after those 60 days. So let's talk about firstly the teacher's retirement system of Georgia. In the teacher's retirement system of Georgia, you're going to contribute 6% of your salary, and your employer, in this case Georgia College, would contribute about 21% as well. That 21% really doesn't matter. So if that 21% changes over time, it's not a big deal because the match is really unimportant to you. The amount that you'll receive after retirement is based on a formula, and that formula does not consider how much Georgia College or even you are putting in. It's just based on a formula of how many years you're working and what your top 2 years of earning were. You're not vested until 10 years, and what that means is if you leave after 8 years, you are no longer eligible to receive TRS benefits. You could leave after 8 years, come back, and then work a few more to get to that 10-year threshold. But if you don't get to 10 years, you will not receive any TRS benefits. So if you elect to choose the TRS plan, and then after 3 or 4 years you decide you don't like living in Georgia and you want to get out of here, the best you can do is just get your refund of your own contributions you've been putting in. So that 6% you've been putting in, you can get that money back, but that's all, and there will be no interest applied or anything. It's really a bad deal if that happens to you. So this is really only a good plan if you're sure that you're going to stay in Georgia. Your salary will be based on, your TRS salary will be based on your 2 years of consecutive salaries that were the highest. So if you work for 30 years, only the 2 adjacent years with the highest salaries will count as your baseline for determining how much you're going to get paid. And so what that means is you definitely want to make sure that you have 2 really good years back to back during your career if you're on this system, if at all possible. And because of inflation, chances are those top 2 years are going to be closer to the end of your career than the beginning. This can get pretty complicated in terms of making decisions. It can also influence some of the decisions you're going to be making. If you're working for 30 years, only your top 2 years will count, and that means the other 28 years won't count. So the other 28 years, you'll be contributing 6% of your salary and not really getting any benefit from it. So just to give you an idea of what this might look like, this is kind of just a typical person here that starts out at Georgia College making 60 grand a year, and then they work for about 30 years. And you can see that at the end of their career there, when they're 60 and 61, those $85,000 salaries will be what is applied to their pension decision. Okay, so all those other years, all the other 28 years there are not relevant in determining what their salary will be. The only exception to that is if you have a really big raise. There are some rules about how much your salary can go up. That won't apply to many people. So generally speaking, you just want to make sure that you have 2 very good years if you're in the TRS plan, because those 2 years will be heavily weighted, actually fully weighted, in deciding how much you're going to get paid after retirement. Once you get TRS retirement benefits, you get those until you're dead. So the longer you live, the better the TRS plan is. We can compare that to the 401A or the ORP. An ORP is technically a 401A plan, very similar to a 401K, where you put in 6%, Georgia College puts in about 9%, and then the money is invested based on your own preferences. Okay, so this is the same person we just showed from before. This person, they have potentially earning 7% growth in the stock market. Maybe that might be a typical amount to get if you're largely investing in stocks. But of course, stocks are variable in terms of how much they return year after year. So it's hard to put a dollar amount on how much the ORP plan is worth. But this just kind of gives you an idea. Unlike the TRS, TRS is a pension plan where you're going to have guaranteed payments after retirement. The ORP plan is invested, and so the investments will determine how much you have after retirement. So for this person here who has the exact same income as the last person over that 30 some odd year career, you can see that if they earn a 7% growth rate through that career, they'll end up with about $1.1 million in their retirement plan. And once they hit retirement, once they hit age 60, they can withdraw from those funds however they see fit. Both in terms of the ORP and the TRS, any withdrawals you make from these accounts, whether they are TRS payments or literal withdrawals from the ORP plan, they will be subject to income tax. So you still got to pay income taxes when these come out. So getting back to TRS, what's interesting about TRS is it does have some unusual benefits. Your retirement payments, again, are taxable. That's going to be true also for the ORP. But what's nice about TRS is your unused sick days can be contributed towards service. This can be a really big deal, especially for faculty members, those teaching, because we tend not to miss a lot of days. Maybe you're only teaching Tuesdays and Thursdays. So even if you get sick, you might only miss 2 days of work for an entire year or semester. And so for those reasons, it's really easy to build up a lot of sick days. So for somebody who works 30 years, they may have 1.5 years of sick leave built up. And those can be applied to their TRS payments, which is an extra, not so obvious benefit of the TRS plan. There are ways to guarantee dependents. So if you are married and you want to make sure your spouse is supported, you can basically pay a fee or have a reduction of your payments. And in turn, those payments will go to your spouse in the event that you die before they do. These can also be given to kids and so forth. And again, these are an example of where it can get kind of complicated in terms of how this is calculated. The end of your career is probably going to be emphasized in the TRS. That's relevant because some of you may be hoping to wind down at the end of your career and maybe work half-time. The TRS plan is not really all that great for those people who want to work less later in life. Because of inflation, wages tend to go up over time, and TRS doesn't really think about inflation while you're working. So, if right now I'm making 80 grand a year, that might be equivalent to making 200 grand 30 years from now. So just because of inflation, the last few years of your career are probably going to be your highest earning in terms of dollars earned. So you may feel obligated to continue working because of that, and you may feel obligated to work really hard at the end of your career with TRS. Really, the opposite is true with ORP. Because of the way investments work, the money you earn early in your career is actually more important when it has more time to grow. So if you're thinking, I really want to work hard early in my career and then slow down over time, that might check the box for ORP being a relatively good deal. On the contrary, perhaps if you're thinking, I've got kids now and when I'm in my early 60s, I'd like to work very hard, well, then that might make the TRS plan better. The ORP plan is definitely risky in the sense that it's invested in stocks, but the TRS plan is also, of course, has its risks. TRS is run by the University System of Georgia and is basically a division of the government of Georgia. So there's always concerns about things that could happen over time. There could be budget crises in Georgia. They could make changes to TRS. They could increase how much you have to put in to contribute to TRS. There's really no way of knowing for sure. But what we do know so far is that the plan is running well and it is stable. So getting back to that ORP plan now, for the ORP plan, you put in 6% and your employer, Georgia College, puts in 9.24%. So if you're making 100 grand a year, that means 6,000 would be taken out of your paycheck gradually month over month. And then Georgia College would contribute 9,240 gradually during the year as well. This is a fantastic plan. You know, that's a very big match. So again, to be clear, you put in 6%, you have no control over that. You have to put in 6% if you're in the ORP plan. And Georgia College is going to put in 9.24% into that same account. So if you're making 100 grand a year, you would put in 6,000. Georgia College would put in 9,240. So you'd have over $15,000 invested into that account in a given year. Once your money is in that account, you basically have the choice of where you want those funds to go. They could go to Fidelity, TIAA-CREF, or VALIC. And I can tell you just from my own experience, I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but I can tell you that Fidelity has probably the best options. VALIC has high fees for a lot of their funds. TIAA-CREF has some really weird rules about accessing your money. It's very hard to pull your money out all at once. And so Fidelity tends to be the best option for most people. Again, that's my opinion. I'm not telling you what to do, but I can tell you that Fidelity, for me, was the best choice. So if you decide to go with the ORP plan, you will choose the ORP. From that, you're required to pick a vendor. And then you'll also subsequently have to choose what investments you're going to select. So you have a host of different things you can invest in, you know, stocks, bonds, variable annuity plans, various other things. So again, looking back at those two examples, TRS versus ORP, this is just the same two slides we saw before compared side by side, and this would show you for this person, they've got two options, TRS or ORP. It's hard to say which is better. If you're going to leave Georgia and you know you're going to leave Georgia, well then you probably don't want the TRS plan because you have to be here at least 10 years to be vested. The longer you're going to be in Georgia, the better TRS looks. And the longer you expect to live, the better TRS looks. You're fully vested in TRS after 30 years or when you hit 60. So what that means is if you start young, if you're watching this video and you're maybe 22 years old, that means you could work until age 52 and then be fully vested at that age, which would make TRS a really good deal. So it's hard to tell which of these is best. I'm going to let you decide that, but hopefully that partially explained how these systems work. I will say that both of these plans are incredibly good. Remember, there's no way to change these plans, and you should look at those investment options before you make your choices. So, log into Fidelity, VALIC, and TIAA-CREF also if you'd like, and see what options they have because that'll help you understand the choices you make. I would not encourage you to call up one of these firms and say, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm trying to decide, because they're going to prey on you in this case. These firms make money by charging you fees. So if you choose the ORP plan, make sure you're designing your plan. You're not contacting these firms directly because they're going to sell you some bad products if you do that. All right, so just some hypotheticals here. Let's say that I plan to stay at Georgia College for the rest of my career. I expect my salary to greatly increase in the last 5 years of my career at Georgia College, and I plan to teach summer classes for the first 20 years of my career, but for the last 20 years of my plan, I will not work as hard. So let's just sort of think about some of these choices. That first one there, I expect my salary to greatly increase in the last 5 years of my career at Georgia College. You think that would be better for the TRS or ORP plan? That would be a good thing to have if you have the TRS plan. Because remember, the TRS plan is based on your top 2 years. And generally speaking, because of inflation, your top 2 years tend to come at the end of your career. So if you expect your salary to go up, like you expect to try to get a dean's position or something at the end of your career, that makes the TRS plan better. The second one, I plan to teach summer classes for the first 20 years of my career, but then stop. That is not good for TRS for the exact opposite reason as before. If you're going to be teaching summer classes, they're going to be pulling 6% of your earned salary throughout those years, but those first 20 years are unlikely to be your top 2 years. So you're paying in extra to the TRS system without getting fully benefited from that. I never get sick. That's good for TRS because you can apply those unused sick days to your TRS years. And I plan to retire at age 50. That's generally bad for TRS because TRS is based on you either working until age 60 or working for at least 30 years for the most part. The next one there, I plan to leave Georgia College and get a job at the University of Georgia. That's fine for either plan because as long as you stay in the university system of Georgia, either of these plans will move with you, so that would be perfectly fine. And if I don't expect to stay in Georgia, well, then the TRS plan, throw it in the trash. That's going to be a bad plan for you. Okay, so doing more. TRS versus RP, that's the first choice you have to make. However, there are a lot of other choices that people often are very unaware. When you first start at Georgia College in particular, it can be really tough to make some of these choices. You're really busy designing your classes or working in a new work environment. And so people basically ignore the other things that are out there. And I definitely want to encourage you to think about these other options, and that's what we're going to be spending a lot of time on now. To understand why these other options are good, let me give you just some mathematical examples here. Let's think about something that has somebody that has a $100,000 salary, okay? And let's think about the very top end of their money. So let's think about the last $10,000 that they have, right? Maybe this person knows they're going to need $90,000 to live. $90,000 that they earn is already going to go towards taxes, their expenses, their vacations they always take, and that might leave them with $10,000 left over that they're trying to decide what to do with. Well, they could choose to spend that last $10,000, and if they do so, that will cost them about $2,200 in federal income taxes and $600 in state income taxes. So thinking about that last $10,000 that they're trying to decide whether or not to spend, if they spend it, it must be realized income, and thus they pay $2,800 to taxes. Instead, they could choose to invest that money, and a lot of people will do this. They'll take that money, realize it, earn it, and then invest it. The problem with this is if you invest the money using like what's called often a taxable account. This just means just earning the money and then investing it through Ameritrade or Robinhood or one of these other firms. In this case, the problem is you still had to pay income taxes on that money. That $10,000 comes out and still gets taxed. And furthermore, when you earn any investment income, that's also almost always going to be taxed as well. A lot of times at a 15% federal tax rate and a 6% state tax rate. So what that means is if you earn money, invest it, and then withdraw, you end up getting taxed twice. You get taxed once as regular income and then taxed again as investment income. I hope you're sticking with me here. The problem here is no one wants to pay taxes. And so some of the other options that are offered at Georgia College will allow you to avoid taxes, which can make a really big deal in the long run. We're not talking about saving you a few grand. We're talking about saving you 6 figures in the long run if you use some of these principles I'm about to go over. So what you would like to do is this. You would like to take that $10,000 and figure out a way to invest it without it ever getting taxed. If you have to spend it, so be it. But if you want to invest it, you would like to figure out a way to avoid taxes. And so I'm going to give you some examples of how you can use the University System benefits to completely avoid taxes, or in some cases, partially avoid taxes on that $10,000. So to understand why this is important, let's think about option 2 versus 3. If you go back through those past couple of slides there, you would see that option 2 is giving you the potential of earning the money, paying taxes on it, and then investing it. And we could compare that to using what's called a retirement vehicle, something like a 457B that we're going to discuss here in a second. And the amazing thing about using one of these plans is you avoid taxes, which allows for greater returns on your money in the long run. So if you invest $10,000 in income that you first had to pay taxes on it, that might result in about $22,000 of money 20 years from now after it's invested. At that point, when the money is withdrawn, you'll have to pay taxes again. However, if we compare that to option 3, which is using a retirement vehicle like a 457B, you don't have to pay taxes on the money now. And in some cases, you may never have to pay taxes on the money. So as a result, you invest $10,000 because the money is not taxed as income when it is first invested. This leaves this person with an extra $17,000 or so in investment earnings after 20 years. So if you like money and you're like me, we can figure out a way to invest our money in a way that will avoid taxes, which can make us far wealthier in the long run. And the investment options we have in the University System of Georgia are very favorable for this. So let's talk about these optional USG retirement vehicles. In no particular order here. One thing we have offered to us is a 403B. This is totally separate from your TRS or ORP, okay? This is not one of those so-called mandatory retirement plans where you have to choose one or the other. The 403B is offered to anyone that is a Georgia College employee, regardless of what other plans you're choosing. These retirement accounts operate just like a 401k. You can contribute money into this account, and you can contribute however much you want, up to $19,000. Check that. This is a year old, my slides. It's now $19,500 per year. So basically, if you're earning $100,000 a year, you could set aside up to $19,500 of that money to go into the 403B instead of into your bank account. The benefit is when it goes into your bank account, it's taxed as income. But if it goes into your 403B, it never is taxed as income. Okay, you with me here? The 403B allows you to put money into it without that money being taxed. So you can put up to $19,500 into this account yearly without paying any taxes on it when it's put in. You can then invest it using one of those vendors that we mentioned before, Fidelity, TIAA-CREF, or VALIC. Okay? You could put $10 a month into it, $50 a month, any amount you want up to that maximum amount, and this will allow you again to avoid taxes. You have two options in terms of setting these up. You can use a traditional plan, which means that the money will not be taxed now. That's how I've been referencing all of these instruments so far. But you also have the option of something called a Roth investment. And a Roth investment allows you to choose to pay taxes now and avoid paying taxes in the future. Remember when we talked about investing money in Robinhood or TD Ameritrade, just investing money without a 403B or out any sort of investment vehicle? Remember, in those cases, you get taxed twice. You get taxed once when the money goes into your account as income, and you'd be taxed again when you earn any investment earnings. Well, the beauty of a 403B is you'll only be taxed once at a maximum. So if you choose traditional, you're saying when you withdraw the money from the 403B, you'll be taxed then. That could be a really good deal because in the future, maybe your income's a lot lower. All right, so you'd be taxed at a lower tax bracket. Or if you're thinking, you know what, my income right now is low, I don't so much mind paying taxes now because I expect my tax rates to go up higher in the future, you can then choose the Roth plan. If you've never heard of this before, this can be kind of complicated, so I would encourage you to look into other resources online to learn about traditional versus Roth plans. But hopefully, if nothing else, I've exposed you to the idea of the 403B, which is offered here at Georgia College, which is all about trying to avoid taxes. So when your money is in your 403B, you then basically can invest it and it will grow over time, and you'll be able to access that money after you turn 59 and a half, or there may be some instances where that money becomes available to you, for example, if you become really sick or something, okay? So it's just like a retirement plan, but it's a retirement plan that you're designing, and you decide how much money you're going to put into it. So that's the 403B. Similarly, you also have the option of putting money into a 457B. A 457B is like a 403B with one big difference. You can withdraw money from your 457B anytime after you've left your employer, anytime after you've left Georgia College. This is great for people who think they're going to retire early, because if you retire early, this will put you in an awkward situation. For example, imagine you're going to retire early and you retire at age 52. Well, that means if you retire at 52, there's probably going to be several years where you have no income. That's a problem because really you would like to earn some income, because if you've looked at the way tax systems work in the United States, the first 30-odd thousand dollars of your income are not really taxed at all. So you would like to earn some money every year to take advantage of the fact that it's feasible to earn money with no tax rate. So what the 457B would allow you to do if you retire at age 52 is put money into the 457B now, pay no taxes on it now, and then start withdrawing from it during early retirement at probably a 0% tax rate. Again, this can get complicated. These are not simple ideas. But hopefully, if you're thinking, I would like to retire early, or I would like to avoid taxes, I'd like to be wealthier in the future, these slides will help you understand that these options are available here at Georgia College. You can put up to $19.5 thousand into the 457B, just like the 403B, and you can double down. You can put money in both of these accounts. Fantastic plans offered here at Georgia College. All right, so now getting back to the ORP, all right? I'm going to connect the ORP, the 403B, and the 457B all together right now because as it turns out, these accounts all really have roughly the same investment options. So if you have the ORP plan, which if you're watching the video, you probably will have it. For most people, they'll decide that that's the better choice for them. So if you have the ORP plan, this is going to be really important to you. If you have the TRS plan, this will be important to you because you may elect to use 457 or 403B options. So once your money is in these accounts, you will have to choose a vendor. This is something you'll do very early on. Again, I recommend Fidelity as my choice. I have no financial stake in Fidelity or anything. I just think they have the cheapest and best options for those who want to avoid fees. You'll then have the option of choosing what type of plan you like. Okay, so I'm going to give you just a couple of examples here. One is the Fidelity 500 Index Fund. An index fund is just an investment that invests blindly in various stocks. Specifically, that Fidelity 500 Index Fund tracks the S&P 500, which is the 500 largest corporations in the United States. So if you invest in the Fidelity 500 Index Fund, you essentially get a piece of the 500 biggest corporations in the United States. And no one is picking and choosing which of these companies you get. It's just based on the companies that are in the S&P 500. So there's no one managing your account. There's no one picking and choosing stocks based on what they think is going to perform well. Instead, they follow rules about what's included in that account. That's known as an index fund. Okay. You'll also see another good option. You might see something called a target retirement fund. A target retirement fund is a hands-off way to invest. Basically, as you get older, the fund itself will become less risky. So if you're looking for a way to invest your money in a responsible manner that's still pretty cheap to select, these retirement funds will be a pretty good deal. So when I talk to my friends and other colleagues about this, these are often the plans that I see most popular. These index funds that are offered by all of these three vendors, Fidelity, TIAA-CREF, and VALIC, and these target retirement funds. And I'm going to show you a couple examples now. All right, so let's talk about expense ratios. An expense ratio is a fee that you're charged to have an account. It's not the only fee that you'll be charged necessarily, but for a lot of the reasonable accounts that are offered, it's the one you should pay attention to. So right here, I'm showing you that aforementioned Fidelity S&P 500 Index Fund. Again, this fund tracks the 500 biggest corporations in the United States. Very good way to invest, by the way, just to invest in as many companies as possible because stock picking is, research shows, practically impossible to do. Those that are professional stock pickers aren't better than random Joes at picking stocks, actually. So if you invest in index funds, you're generally investing in lots of firms and you're paying very low fees because you're not paying anyone's salary really. No one's picking funds for you. So this Fidelity S&P 500 Index Fund has a very low expense ratio. An expense ratio is how much of every dollar that you're investing will go to the firm every year that is basically managing your money. So in this case, we're talking about Fidelity, okay? So that 0.015% fund fee means this. If you put $1 in this account, then in the first year, they're going to charge you 0.015% of that dollar to have your money invested. That's really not much money, right? I mean, I'm trying to do the math here in my head. I guess that means if you put $100 into this account, they would charge you 1.5 cents, if I'm doing the math right there. So very low fees, okay? When expense ratios get down to less than 0.1%, that means they are very, very low, okay? This is hard to beat. So this is a really good thing. If you opt for Fidelity, they have some very low expense ratio funds, which is good because if you talk to some of your friends in the private sector or at other universities, you'll find that a lot of times they have very expensive funds. So this is a good deal if you're trying to invest your money and you don't want to pay a lot of money to do so. So again, that expense ratio is how much you're charged to use this asset. We can compare that now to some of these offerings from VALIC, and my understanding is VALIC has changed some of these expenses, but VALIC has expenses that are much higher. So if you look way over to the right in these columns there's gross and net expense ratios. We don't need to get too down into the weeds here, but those are percentages of expense ratios. So if you look at some of these accounts, some of them are up to 1%. So a 1% expense ratio means if you put $100 in the account, they're going to charge you $1. And this becomes problematic over the long run because that 1% is on all of your money in the account. So if you have ORP and you stay at Georgia College for 30 years, you might end up with $1 million in your account. Well, 1% of $1 million, that's a lot. That's 10 grand. So if you just leave it in there, they're going to be charging you 10 grand to manage your money. That's awful, right? That's not a good deal. And there's really no justification for paying such high fees when you have basically the same assets offered by Fidelity, or in some cases, even within VALIC, they may have better deals. So when you think about expense ratios, you want to make sure you're minimizing those. If you look back at that last one there was an S&P 500 index fund offered by VALIC that was charging 0.5% compared to 0.015% for Fidelity. So what that basically means is these firms are offering the exact same product, an S&P 500 index fund, where your money is invested in the S&P 500 funds. But they're charging 33 times more at VALIC than they are at Fidelity. This just underscores why you don't want to just blindly choose one of these investment firms. Again, I recommend Fidelity because they have low fees and also ease of accessing your money when you reach the retirement age. So just to underscore the difference here, this is just imagining two people that contribute 19 grand a year into maybe a 457 or 403B plan. I know that's a lot of money to put in every year, but this just goes to show how big the difference can be. So if Fidelity and VALIC both offer S&P 500 index funds, Fidelity offers one with a 0.015% expense ratio, and VALIC offers one with a 0.5% expense ratio. This shows that for this person, over the lifetime of their career, this could cost them upwards of $1 million in terms of total gains. And the reason has to do with exponential growth. The expense ratio is 33 times higher for Fidelity, or excuse me, 33 times higher for VALIC. And if you know much about exponential growth, it's not just that they charge you more, it's that they charge you more on money that's growing over time at an exponential rate. So what might not seem like a big deal ends up being at least a 5-figure mistake in the long run. So you really want to pay attention to expense ratios when you're choosing your investment options. Here are some links. I will share with you guys the PowerPoint here, but these are some links that offer some of the comparison between the things offered by Fidelity and VALIC. I will say, just make sure these are updated because there have been some changes in these accounts, and it's a constant fluid situation. Just about every year, something changes with the investment options offered here. The good news is the changes have all been positive lately. Things have gotten better with these companies. All right, as I mentioned before, you got to choose between traditional versus Roth if you are investing in a 403 or 457 plan. I'm going to skip these for now. If you want to have more information about these, again, I would encourage you to do the investigation on your own. I don't want to spend too much time in these slides here. But I definitely do want to talk about this. Out of everything we've talked about so far, the HSA is probably the thing that I care the most about. And so I hope you made it this far in the video because to me, the health savings account is so important. All right. You're going to have to make your TRS versus ORP choice. A lot of new faculty care a lot about that. A lot of older faculty don't care about it at all because once you make the choice, it's gone. Here is an opportunity to save a lot of money. The health savings accounts, okay? Let me go ahead and tell you right now that what I'm going to tell you about the health savings account as of summer 2020, let me tell you, it's correct. What I'm going to tell you right now is correct. I will say that because you're going to hear a lot of misinformation about the HSA. You may even hear misinformation from our own HR department because I know sometimes they make some mistakes about HSAs. And I want to make some corrections because the HSA is the best plan offered to Georgia College faculty members and staff members outside of those forced plans that you have to choose, outside of the TRS and ORP. So let me tell you how this works. When you are choosing your health insurance plan, you're going to get a few options, and perhaps you've already elected what those options will be. You could choose a comprehensive plan. That means you're basically going to have very high premiums and very good health insurance. You could choose a high deductible plan, which basically means your premiums are going to be low, but you're going to have a high deductible, which means you'll end up paying a lot out of pocket. And then there's also an option for some HMO, and the HMO is just really not feasible in Milledgeville. We don't have enough healthcare providers in that HMO. So what you're going to find out is if you really investigate these plans, the high deductible plan is really the best option for a lot of people. Not for everyone, okay? It's not the best for everyone. So if you're watching this, don't run off and necessarily jump on the high deductible plan. But I can tell you mathematically the high deductible plan is going to look good for a lot of people. If you have the high deductible plan, you will also have access to the HSA, the health savings account. Only those with a high deductible plan will have access to the HSA, which is one of the reasons why the high deductible plan is a good deal. As of 2019, I think the values here have changed just a little bit, but the HSA plan allows you to contribute up to about $6,250. I think it went up $100 during 2020. So you can contribute about $6,250 to your HSA through your paycheck. All right. So you can basically do what's called a voluntary salary reduction to allow money to come out of your salary and directly into your HSA. Okay. Now you're wondering, what is HSA? Well, we've got to explain it because it's a little bit strange. A lot of people don't know how it works. Okay. So let's start at the beginning. You have the high deductible plan and you decide you would like to put money into the HSA. The HSA is going to allow you to pay for your medical expenses with the HSA funds. Now, why is this a good thing? If I have a medical expense, why not just pay it out of pocket? Well, here's the deal. The money that's in my pocket, the money that I will access if I use my credit card to make medical purchases, the problem is that money has already been taxed. If I have $20 in my wallet, that $20 comes from income that must have already been taxed. But here's the beauty of an HSA. If you put $1,000 into your HSA, that money is not taxed as income. All right, so think about it. I got two choices here. I've got $1,000 of raw income. If I take that $1,000 of raw income and earn it as regular income, it gets taxed and it becomes maybe $700. If instead I take that $1,000 of earned income and put it into an HSA, $1,000 goes into the HSA. And then I can use those funds to pay for medical purchases and other things later in life. It's a really good deal. And what makes it an even better deal is it completely avoids not only income taxes, but also you're not charged Social Security or Medicare taxes on that $1,000, which is very rare. Other plans like 403s, 457s, ORPs, TRS, you're still subject to that income being taxed as Social Security and Medicare taxes, but not the HSA. Makes it a really good deal. On top of that, Georgia College will match your first $750 you put into the HSA. So you want to put at least $750 into the account. If you put $750 into your HSA as a family member, you get $750 extra by Georgia College. If you're not in a family plan, if it's just you on your HSA, cut it in half. All right, so you can put up to $375 and get a $375 match by Georgia College. For me, I max out the HSA every single year, and I will never stop maxing it out. Any savings that I have, any money that I want to save and invest, it's going into the HSA. And I'm going to convince you why this is such a good plan. All right, you've already learned that it completely avoids taxes, not just income taxes, but Medicare and Social Security taxes. But it's got other benefits on top of that. Anytime you use money in your HSA to make medical purchases, this might be going to the dentist, paying for just a regular doctor visit, a surgery, anything like this, all right? Anytime you make a covered medical expense, you can use your HSA to pay for it, and your money is never taxed. You got $100 in your HSA, and you have a $100 dental visit, you can use your HSA card to pay for that dental visit. That $100 that you're using has never been taxed. That's a fantastic deal because remember, most people pay about 30% in taxes or more if they live in Georgia. On top of that, the money in the HSA can be invested and never goes away. You may hear somebody tell you you've got to make sure to use all your money in your HSA, that an HSA is use it or lose it. Wrong. An HSA is not use it or lose it. The money in an HSA never goes away. It is your money. You may also sometimes hear that your HSA cannot be invested. A lot of people don't know about this. Your HSA can be invested in stocks and bonds, just like your ORP or 457B. A lot of people don't know that. So here's the deal. I can put $6,250 in my HSA. Georgia College adds $750 into that account. And that leaves me with $7,000 in an HSA, which I get to invest in stocks and bonds. And when used on medical expenses, I never, ever pay any kind of taxes on the money in that account. What an amazing deal. Now, you might be wondering, if I'm putting $7,000 in these accounts, that's kind of a lot. What if I don't have enough medical expenses? You know, if I'm putting $7,000 a year, every single year and investing it, you know, I might be left with 200 grand in this account when I retire. Well, here's the thing about an HSA. If you reach age 65, the HSA is fully withdrawable. You can withdraw money from your HSA just like you can from your ORP, your 403B, or your 457B. So you never have to worry about having too much money in your HSA. If you do withdraw from your HSA just to buy a house or something, you are taxed as income, but that's okay because it's very hard to avoid paying taxes at some point on other investment options. The HSA is an amazing deal. For me, it's the money that I'm going to invest in first. It's where my first dollar of savings goes in, and it's also the money that I'm going to try to hold on to as long as possible into retirement. You can use your HSA to pay for a nursing home, for example, and never have to pay taxes on it. A really good deal. Within HSA, you have investment options all offered through one vendor. That vendor is called Optum. Optum is the one that manages these accounts. You don't have any choices there. But once you are into Optum, you have some different investment options. The investment options are good. They're really good, just like the ones in the Fidelity accounts are as well. So for example, they offer a Vanguard total stock market fund, which basically means you're investing in the entire US stock market. They offer it with a 0.04% expense ratio, which is very, very cheap. So the HSA, I'm telling you, investigate it. It's an amazing plan, but you only have access to it if you're using the high deductible health insurance plan. Here's one of those examples that I was just mentioning, the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund. There it is right there. Net expense ratio 0.04%. All right, so they're charging you very little, 0.04% annually on your money you have in it. And then I think the University System of Georgia or perhaps Optum charges you a small fee on top of that, something like 0.1%, which is really, pretty small, not really a big deal. I show this just because I want to make sure you understand that it can be invested, because I've had people call me out and say that HSAs can't be invested. I had a member of HR one time tell my wife that you can't invest in an HSA. You can. Here's evidence of it. Here is my HSA. I've got money in a couple different index funds there. Nothing particularly special about the ones I have. Those are just the ones I elected that fit what I needed. But you can see I have money in those accounts that are invested in my HSA. All right, you can see I've got like $14,000 in my account. Please don't steal from me. Just want to make sure you understand that, if you're on a family health insurance plan here at Georgia College, you have $750 in free company match offered by Georgia College. I want you to understand how important that is. So if you earn a 7% growth rate on money invested, that $750 would be worth potentially 100 grand or more on your money. Okay, so that $750, a lot of people, they just say, it's not really that much money. Well, $750 year after year invested tax-free really adds up over the long run. And I'm always amazed when I talk to my friends and my colleagues, and I'll ask them about their HSA and they're like, it's not a big deal, I don't put money in it. They don't know about the company match. They don't care about the company match. They don't care about the amazing tax benefits of the HSA. So I would really encourage you to look into this. If you want to take one thing away from this little video that I'm showing you right here, it's got to be the HSA. All right, so let me jump ahead here. Just to give you specifics, the HSA Summary, this is from last year. I didn't take the time to update this. I was a little lazy. I think it can contribute up to $6,350 this year. Cut that in half for an individual. That company match is $750, still is this year, $375 for an individual. And remember, the goal here is to reduce taxes, which can make a big deal in the long run. If you could avoid paying taxes, we're not talking about saving you $2 or $3 grand. We're talking about saving you 100 or 2 or 300 grand over your lifetime, just by making good investment choices. It's all about playing the game, and the game is avoid taxes. All right, we're not breaking rules. We're just using the thing the government has allowed us to do to put our money away. And there's a reason why they offer these things. The government doesn't want you to be a burden on the system when you're retiring. They don't want to have to worry about you as a potential health insurance liability. So they're giving you ways to make it easier for you to invest. These tax plans are government plans that they're offering to you. So I would really encourage you to take advantage of these. A couple other plans I just want to make note of here real quick. In addition to these things offered by the University System of Georgia, here's a couple things you might think about. I'm just going to mention right now. I just skipped one and it won't let me go backwards here, but you should look into an IRA. If you have questions about our IRA, feel free to ask. Roth IRAs can be a really good deal. And there's also something called a 529 plan, which is an education savings plan for those in Georgia. I'm not going to go into great detail here because I know that I'm sending this video primarily out to new faculty hires. Probably have bigger fish to fry right now than the 529 plan. Okay, so just basically a couple of questions just to end up this quick little video. I want to make sure that you think about a couple of things right now, okay? Number one, how much would you earn per hour of effort on your finances? This is what I want you to think about, okay? I want you to imagine right now, if you put in 50 hours of time into developing a personal finance plan and you stuck with it until you retired, I want you to think about how much money you would earn on those 50 hours of work. You're not going to be able to find a better paying job than that. If you spend some time working on your finances, learning about these plans, you will save yourself 100 grand, all right? So 100 grand just to put in a little bit of work, that's a very good deal. A lot of people don't put in this effort because it's a little bit daunting. There's these numbers, 403, 457. There's these what seem like complex codes and tax systems to worry about. They're not really that complex. They just take a little bit of time to get into. So ask yourself, how much would it be worth just to spend some time working on your taxes? And I bet you cannot find a better financial deal. For me, I sat down and thought about it one time, and it came out to about $400,000. My first 20 to 30 hours of learning about these systems so that I could implement my plan is going to be worth a little less than $500,000 to me in retirement. You cannot beat that bang for the buck. And secondly, what are you going to do today to take advantage of these plans? All right, I've got no financial stake. I'm just trying to help you out. But what I would encourage you to do is make an action today. All right, don't just watch this video and then move on with your life and say, maybe I'll return. Look into it right now. Figure out how to get money into your HSA right now. The HSA alone could save you tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars relative to paying for your medical expenses out of pocket. So take advantage of those plans. Again, my name is Brent Evans. I'm a professor of economics at Georgia College. You can reach me at brent.evans@gcsu if you happen to be catching this video outside of my email forwards. If you have any questions, again, let me know. And I hope this was helpful. I know you're going to have a lot of questions. There's going to be a lot of things you're confused about because 50 minutes is not really enough time to go through all of these details. So let me know if you have any questions, and good luck.